I didn't realize that I'd made like a really serious promise. But when I went to bed that night, I saw a light come over my bed. It went from one end of the room to right above me. And it was like not just a light, it was like a sentient light that could see me and loved me. And I could just feel like I was still hiding a lot of my heart. I was really scared for this light to see me. And I just told it to go away over and over again. Like I tensed up because I was like, I'm not ready for this. Reiki was a stretch, but like this light coming into my room. And when I told it to go away, I started feeling tingles in my head and it spread through my head and it felt like love and peace, but I thought it was a headache because I didn't know what it was. And it said, you don't have to be afraid. But after that night, the whole experience started for 2 years. So it was like all of these teachings that came to me. The first was the next morning I woke up and I saw light coming out of everyone.
My guest today is Rebecca Kastl, who had an unusual upbringing. And then at the age of 26, she had a spiritually transformative experience. And since then has been able to connect with angels and her spirit guides and lots of other things. And so today I'm really excited to talk to her about her experiences. So, Rebecca, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Lori. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. Me too. This is going to be a great conversation. So, for the people that are tuning in who have never heard you or heard your story, why would somebody want to listen to this today?
I think because I was a total skeptic and I really questioned my experiences. So if you're happening to come from a skeptical environment, it might be a way that you could relate to your own experiences if you have them, just the way that I ended up accepting my experiences.
I
Yeah.
love that. And that's such a great point because I think there are a lot of people right now that are waking up and they're searching and they're
Mm.
looking for stuff. And what I always say to people is, as you hear things, as you read things, you have to check into your heart and see how your heart feels about it. If it feels good, then accept it, bring it in. And if it doesn't, then release it, let it go. And maybe it'll come back to you later and maybe it never will.
That's totally right. That's absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so why don't you tell us about this unusual upbringing that you had before this experience happened?
Yeah. So my upbringing was, well, I had just a few different traditions in my family. My dad was Jewish. My mom converted to Judaism to raise us, but then went back to Christianity later. So I had a Christian and Jewish influence. And then in my 20s, my mom remarried an Indigenous man, my stepdad, who I became very close with, and he was said to be a traiteur from which is what you call medicine man in Louisiana. So he was a huge guide for me as I had these different experiences happen to me in my 20s. It was like he really keyed into them. So I have these three strains, and I'm just finally realizing it's okay. I don't have to fit into one box, and I can tell my story. And if it helps you with your belief system, then I'm so thankful.
Well, I love that because I would think that the majority of people who are watching probably have a lot of different influences that they've had in their life. I think it's less common now that people have just one single
That's true.
area that influences them.
That's true. And I spent so many years after my experience trying to figure out which one to fit into. And I was just like, I like all of them.
That's
It was
good.
so much bigger than that. So,
That's
yeah.
good. Okay, so why don't you tell us about this experience that you had when you were 26?
Okay. So I will say it lasted for 2 years. So it started when I was 26 and it ended when I was 28. And basically, I had been on a healing journey. I'd had a trauma at 13. And eventually, I went to therapy, and therapy told me I was fine. But I knew that something was still wrong, as many of us do. There was more like soul work I needed to do. And I had started to learn some Reiki. I had started to do some yoga, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling really happy. But I was still like a skeptic, and I was still overcoming a lot of that skepticism. Reiki, I just thought my Reiki teacher was totally nuts. And I was like, why am I even coming here? But every time I felt better, I couldn't deny it. But then at 25, I moved to New York for graduate school at Teachers College at Columbia University. And I was up there, and my first January there, I was writing in my journal. So I had started to write my journal, Dear God, just for whatever reason. On my healing journey, I started writing that. You don't have to use the word God, but that's the word I was using. And I had just been sick, and I was getting over being sick. So I don't know if that put me in a different state. But as I was writing in my journal, I felt like I got overcome by a feeling of It was like tingles and really intense. And I just wrote, Dear God, I have decided to give my life to you and whatever that entails. I want to be guided by you, by the light. This is my pledge. I will work hard to bring this to fruition. Please help me bring light to other people. Thank you. Amen. Something along those lines. I don't have it written in front of me, but I just wrote that and I thought, and then I kept going, like, my life is fine. I'm in school, la, la, la. And I didn't realize that I'd made like a really serious promise. And I still don't, like, it took me forever to really believe this happened to me. But when I went to bed that night, I saw a light come over my bed. It went from one end of the room to right above me. And it was like not just a light, it was like a sentient light that could see me and loved me. And I could just feel like I was still hiding a lot of my heart. I was really scared for this light to see me. And I just told it to go away over and over again. Like I tensed up because I was like, I'm not ready for this. Reiki was a stretch for like this light coming into my room. And when I told it to go away, I started feeling tingles in my head and it spread through my head and it felt like love and peace, but I thought it was a headache because I didn't know what it was. And it said, you don't have to be afraid. Like it put a voice into my head when I relaxed. You don't have to be afraid, but if you are, you can wear a hat. And it put a graduation hat in my mind's eye. And at the time, I tried to change the hat because I didn't know what was happening. And I was like, well, that's not cute. And I wanted to change it to a different hat. And then it stopped. But after that night, the whole experience started for 2 years. So it was like all of these teachings that came to me. The first was the next morning I woke up and I saw light coming out of everyone, like they were completely the most beautiful angels ever. I was in awe just walking down the street, like amazed at how beautiful everybody was, just glowing. Soon after that, I started having psychic dreams that were like telling me things that were going to happen or giving me guidance about things I needed to do, like really basic things about relationships, or I had a dream about a car accident a few days before it happened. I say these aren't like prophetic, they're not about the world, they're just about my life or about my friends. But they've happened ever since. And it took me a while to get used to knowing which ones were true, but it happened at such a deep level that it was really not that hard to realize that they were psychic. After, let's see, I also started feeling how connected everybody is. So it was almost like a life review in real time. So was able to see if I hurt my sister by accident and I felt it in my heart, like how much it really hurt her, like more than I ever realized. I didn't know I could hurt people like that. And also, I could feel how much it was like it meant to people if I was kind to them. So, learning just how much our actions and our thoughts even make a difference to others. That was a big one. I also started feeling angels around me. The first time I really noticed it, I was going to sign up to study abroad and I was starting to sign up and I felt two really tall angels at either shoulder. I don't know how I knew they were tall. It just felt like they were really tall. And then I've read later, I hadn't read about this before, but there's a lot of places where they talk about these tall angels. And it was really cool to feel that. I feel them now. And I also have, trained like for a while. I didn't know what to do with these experiences, but I've trained to do angel readings for people. So I tune into people's angels and I hear what their angels want to tell them if they're having a hard time hearing it for themselves, because your angels are always with you too. I saw an alternate timeline of my life. So this was also something that was really out there for me. I was sitting at a coffee shop and I was going to start writing because I wanted to write about my experiences trying Judaism. And as I opened my computer, I saw my whole life flash before my eyes if I did that. And like it was like bad reviews, feeling dejected, like dying a sad, like lonely death almost. And I lived the whole life, but it was like I watched the movie and was in the movie. And then I just thought, okay, I'm not doing that. And I closed my computer. But it was also, I felt little timelines since, and it was really hard for me for a while to make decisions because it was like every decision I made, I could feel into the timeline a little bit for a while. And that was a little overwhelming. I also, since my trauma, this is a little hard for me to talk about because I wasn't raised to believe in demons, but I had nightmares about demons from my trauma. I called them that, but they would circle my bed at night, these like shadowy figures that were, I think, like the fear or the leftover trauma that I hadn't dealt with even after therapy. But after this experience, I was able to get my nightmares to go away. I was awakened the last nightmare in the middle of the night at like 26 or 27. And it was this shadowy figure was circling me. It was like in between wake and sleep. It was like a sleep paralysis. And I just looked right at it and I was like, you can't hurt me. God lives in me and works through me. And I just said that over and over again and it went away. And I never had those nightmares again. And I'd been dealing with them for 13 years, like nightly. And sometimes they would be worse and sometimes they would be better. But like I've never had a nightmare like that ever again. That was a huge deal for me. And the very end of it, I think I've basically told you the main parts, but the end, I had this beautiful dream where I was in my room and I was talking to this person that I used to think was a real person that I was going to like date and marry, but it was an angel. I was
Darn
talking,
it. You're like,
I know. I've
ah.
been like in love with an angel since I was 28. Like I just realized last year he's probably not a real person. I'm literally married to someone else, but he was so real. I mean, these things are just very real when they happen to you. Like it was another level of my life that was much more real than anything else happening to me around me. I was going to grad school the entire time, doing great in grad school. These experiences were coming to me and I had mentors to help me with them. But anyway, I was talking to this person and I was saying life is hard. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, life is amazing. You need to go out and have a great life, go have adventures, live a great life. And I looked at him like he could see into my heart and he was glowing so much. And I just loved, like, I've never felt that much love since, even when I fell in love. But he was like, and I said, when can I meet you? And he said, when you're finished swimming. And then the dream shifted from me lowered from a huge ship down into the ocean alone and just having to swim out alone. And when I woke up the next morning, my whole experience was over. So for those 2 years, I'd felt really surrounded by angels and light. And like there's a picture of me at 26 where you can like see this orb around me. It was just like total light. And then it was over. And I felt very confused because I thought I was going to go through all of these things. I was going to learn all this stuff. And then I was going to go live in heaven. Instead, it was like I was going to go through all these things, learn all this stuff, and just stay on the earth and have to figure it out. What did it all mean? So, yeah, that's most of the story.
Wow. I have so many different directions we can go with this
Okay.
because these are incredible things that happen. And I understand like this is near death like experience to you. You've attended IANS, the International Association for Near
Mhm.
Death Studies. You've connected with a lot of people who have had near death experiences and
Mhm.
watched a lot of those stories. So you understand how they work. And it sounds like there's some similarities because one of the things I heard you say is this felt more real
Yeah.
than the grad school time that I was also experiencing simultaneously. So, can you explain to people what you mean about how it felt different than the everyday life that we're experiencing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question because it was when I started to think about my experiences and how to explain them, I really just thought back to the ones that came from somewhere beyond. They felt like they touched my soul and they were different than a real person on the street, or they were different even than my spiritual mentors who were real people. Was it my stepdad and the shaman I found in New York who helped me just make me feel like I wasn't crazy. So I don't know. It was they just happened. They were more real. Like that angel dream. He was the most real person I've ever met in my life, but it was in a dream. The
Can you
light, most
explain?
real light. What?
Can you explain what he looked like since you got to
Yeah.
actually see him? And I know some of these experiences were like a feeling, or you could, telepathically hear, but this one you got to see
Oh
him.
yeah, he was like glowing and he had maybe curly light hair and like just this beautiful smile. Like he just knew life was amazing and like he just was emanating love. And yeah, I guess the how he looked was very handsome. And I was teaching an IANS class on how to talk with your angels and I had to stop myself from saying angels are way hotter than humans because like I'm like, that's probably not appropriate, but like he was so beautiful. And it was also not just like physically beautiful, it was like the light and the love that he was like radiating. So it all went together. And I really thought he was real. And I would go on dates after that and I'd be like looking in someone's eyes. And if I kept looking, I would see the same light that Angel had. And so I was so confused for a while. Speaking of being in the real world, I was like, well, everybody has that. If you keep looking, that same light is there. So it's like every guy, the same the guy from the dream. But it wasn't. It wasn't.
So,
So
did he have wings?
he didn't have wings. He just had a lot of light. So I think he did not have wings. But
So, how
he
did you know that he was an angel versus like a
a
guide
spirit
or?
guide, that's true. I
Yeah.
just say angel, but he could be a guide. He could be like a soul partner. I don't really know. But it was definitely something that I waited for years to meet him. He told me his name was Jonathan, and I was like, I literally would sit on the internet and like Google people named Jonathan to try to find him. I mean, it seems ridiculous now, but he was that real.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back to when you had this experience, and the next day you said you saw the lights coming out of people, and you could walk down the street and you could see the light. So, will you explain specifically about what you mean? Because we could have light coming out of our eyes, it could be
Yes, it
surrounding us
was
like
like
there's
a
an aura.
halo of light glowing outside of everyone, and it was like white spark, like white, like beautiful light. It was unbelievable, and it was more than a light you turn on in the room. And it was also made me love everyone. So it wasn't just like light you switch on. It was like the love and the light inside of everyone. And I
Was the
just,
color the same for everybody?
yes, yeah. And once it was because basically, I guess that light came to me and I got infused with it, and then I saw it in everyone. But as time went on, I still see the light, but I'm able to see also like what's kind of on top of the light, like what's, we all have different things that bring us closer and further away. So that's what I kind of use in my healing work, is kind of, yeah, getting people back into that space, their true nature.
Well, let's go there because I want to understand what you mean. So, you say that we all have a light, but then we
Yes.
have something on top of it. And that thing that's on top of it can either make us closer or further away.
Yeah.
So, what does
So,
that
okay.
mean?
Okay, we all have the light, and this is
Mhm.
goes for me too. It's not like I'm perfect. I definitely do things that bring me further from the light when I'm in a bad mood, or like maybe I drink wine. But so the basically the things that kind of are on top of you are like the things that are keeping you further from your loving, beautiful heart. And I mean, the thing that's on top is only going to be what takes you away. Like if you uncover all of that, it's your beautiful light. Like I will say, it was really strong, especially like the experience ended and that some of my experiences continued to be very strong. But I remember I had moved back home to Louisiana, and I met someone who I just knew was in distress, and it looked like he had knives coming out of his eyes when I talked with him. And he had been a veteran. He had been a sniper in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and I didn't know that at the time, but I knew he was really hurting, and I just felt I needed to ask him about what happened in the Middle East. And he sat and told me everything. He cried, and then he said, "You helped me so much. I was about to commit suicide tonight." And then he went on, and I made sure he had therapy. I didn't think I was like saving his life, but this was the kind of thing that I was like really tuned into. And I don't know what it means to look like somebody has knives coming out of their eyes, but that's really what it felt like. He just had so much pain that he needed to heal. So,
So, did the light look brighter or dimmer in different people that you saw?
not that first day. The first day or two after, it was like everybody had it. It was so bright. And then once my experience ended and I was trying to figure out if it was real, certain people had more light than others.
Well, and I know in a spiritual sense, more light doesn't necessarily mean good, better, best. But can
Right.
you explain what that difference might have felt like or seemed like to you?
Um, yeah, it just seemed like some people had spent some time trying to be connected with the light. We can all be connected with it, and some people really have made that part of their lives, and that really shows. And children obviously full of light. They haven't been, they haven't done their life paths yet. I always remember when I was thinking maybe my experience wasn't real. I was at my just like adopted grandmother's house in Louisiana, and she was very religious, and I don't, but she had a minister that was coming to her house and to give her communion, and him and his wife walked in, and at the time I was like, whatever just happened to me was not real. But they walked in and they just had like light, just literally just like so much light out of them. I like left the room crying because I could see how much light they had. It was just like they had made they really were into being connected to that side of the world. And I'm not saying you have to be a minister. I mean, but those are two people that I was like, whoa, I definitely like, I'm seeing light around these people right now. It was really intense because I was trying to say what happened to me wasn't real. So,
Well,
yeah.
so you mentioned that one of the things you also saw is that how connected we all are. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I just felt viscerally if I hurt someone, what it did to them. I didn't have like an actual life review where I could see the after effects of every action, but it just made me really know that being kind and actually feeling kind in my heart really makes a difference when I'm interacting with people. So it just felt like I was related to everyone. Like, even when I go in a grocery store, I'm like, it looks like we're all in the grocery store together. Like, we're just doing different things, but I feel like we're all together in the grocery store, like having this human experience. And sometimes I look above and I'm like, oh, yeah, like so I really do try to bring like major kindness to I'm not perfect. Sometimes I make, obviously, but I do try to bring kindness to everyone because I know it makes a huge difference for people. I felt
Oh,
it, and I see it. So,
I love that. Well, you mentioned that you did have kind of something similar to a life review, and you were reviewing different things from your life, and you saw an incident where you had done something by accident to your sister,
Yeah.
and you didn't realize how much you hurt her with that, and that you had such a big ability to hurt somebody in a way that you didn't even understand. And so that sounded like something that you did without intention. Did
Yes,
you
that's true.
see anything that you did that wasn't positive with intention?
Okay, I'm gonna just sound really silly. Maybe I've never intentionally tried to hurt someone. If I've hurt someone, it's definitely been unintentional, and I'm sure that I've done that. But I don't, especially after this experience, like I couldn't hold on to anger for people. I couldn't hold on to
Mm.
those kind of negative feelings in a way that I couldn't do that. So I don't know. I'd have to really think about, have I intentionally hurt someone? Before this experience, yes, but after this light and all this love, I can't say that I was intentionally trying to hurt people. No, it was almost impossible to do that, honestly.
Okay.
It was just so beautiful. I just felt so much love. I was like, why would I hurt anybody with it?
Aw. Um, you saw these different timelines. And you
Mhm.
said you were sitting in a place and you were like at your computer and you were making a decision about something you were going to do in the future. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you have this experience where you become the person who has made that decision and it plays out for you. And you
Mhm.
can see the whole lifetime and you can see the ramifications of
Yeah.
what that decision made. And you didn't understand it at the time. And you said you've since understood how to discern when something is going to be a good decision for you or a bad decision for you. So I'd like you to speak to that a little bit. And then because what I'm trying to get to is I want to understand what you've learned and how you've learned to discern. Because for the most people that are watching, they haven't had an experience like yours or near death experience. And people who are watching these videos often are looking for ways that they can learn from people who've had these experiences so that they can implement those things into their lives to get some type of a positive
So true.
path or something that they haven't known how to do before. So
Right.
can you speak to that
Yes.
experience and what you've learned?
Such a great question. Again, basically, it all starts with listening to your heart. So, from that one timeline, I was able to know that I needed to listen to my heart to get in tune with the right path for me. And that's honestly how I even had my experience in the first place. I was trying to heal and I wanted to feel my heart. So, basically, tuning into your heart center and just asking, really bringing your awareness to it and starting to feel it and asking to be guided. I mean, you can just say, please, angels or God or whatever you want to say, the divine, the universe, please guide me and help me know my right path. That will really help. And basically, I'm able to stay tuned into the right path for me. I mean, I meditate, I try to stay clear, and I try to hear what my heart wants me to do. And it's hard for me for the longest time after my experience ended. I would hear things and I'd be like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do, my ego. It doesn't go well. It's way better to listen to your heart. And so if you start to, it's like a muscle. Sadly, like we didn't all learn that in childhood. A lot of it was even trained out of us in school and by our families. So I mean, but your heart is really connected with the divine at all times. So you can trust that you can learn to listen to it and it'll take you on the right path. So it seems complicated because it's not, but it's not mental and you'll start to feel it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's really helpful.
Okay. I hope so.
The two parts of that were super helpful. One that you said that you actually ask for the help, and I actually did a video not very long. I'll post it up here because one of the things that I really understand in everything that I've experienced personally and through listening to all these stories is that it's not like the other side is just jumping in and taking over for us. We have free will, and in order to actually receive help you have to ask for it because they can't intervene with your free will. So can you speak to
That's
that a
right.
little bit and what you understand about that?
That's so true. I think that, yeah, they're waiting. I mean, I think that beautiful angel woman, Lorna Byrne, talks about unemployed angels basically just waiting to be asked to help. So you do need to ask for help. And I think, especially if you're trying to heal or tune into your heart or be of service, like those are prayers that angels really answer pretty fast, which is why I think my prayer in my journal got answered so big because I just it was a prayer of service and love. Yeah, so they're not gonna. I basically made a ton of mistakes before I started healing. It's not like I'm a perfect person. I really just decided when I was 23 is when I started really deciding to heal, and I wanted to heal all the way. And I started opening myself up to guidance and the divine, and like they're right there for you. But before that, I made tons of terrible choices with my mind. I was not happy. I was doing things I didn't like. I was hurting people. And then it was, you know, once I said, no, I want to actually live a better life, I want to heal. I mean, it was just like, boom, bump, let's go. They are literally waiting. So if you're having a hard time, just say your prayers, put it out there, and you can change your life miraculously. Mine completely changed.
I think that's super helpful for the people that are watching. So you mentioned before this experience, you had started to do some healing journeys, and one of the things that you connected with is Reiki. So for the
Yes.
people who don't know what it is, we explain a little bit about what it is and how it
Yeah.
worked?
So I was 23 when I met my Reiki teacher. It was right after I said I want to heal all the way. So it was like I started getting sent these teachers and healers. Reiki is an energy healing modality. It's a very beautiful, high level form of energy. I can feel it very well now. I do energy healing sessions that use Reiki. But I will tell you, I didn't believe in it. I thought my Reiki teacher was crazy, and I would be like, "How do you know this is real? How do you know this is real?" And she would just tell me because I feel it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. How can I argue with that? You feel it. And then I would get Reiki sessions and I would feel it and I would feel so much better. So it's not a religion. It's basically just a very loving form of energy. They call it universal life force energy. I really highly recommend it. If you find a healer that you trust, it can be great.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I have a friend who does Reiki healing, and it is a real thing. She connects to people and she can actually hear things that their body is talking about. She'll connect with things that have happened to them physically in their lives. And
Yeah.
she, even if it's like a death of somebody, and we hold some of these things in our bodies energetically, and part of what they're doing is releasing. So it's real from my experience as well.
Yeah, that's great. It's
I
beautiful.
know. So some of these things I know sound a little bit woo woo, but I think that more and more we're going to see that there's science behind these connections and these modalities because we are at our center of everything. We're energy.
Hmm.
And if we're energy, then that means that everything can be manipulated with frequency and light and the ability for other people to touch us and connect to those energies. So I think that that's
So
really,
true.
really helpful. So you have these nightmares and they're going on for a very long time and they are not going away. And then you said you discovered a way. So will you revisit that again for a second and just
Yeah.
share with anybody? Because there are probably people that are watching that also have dreams that they don't understand and maybe that they don't want to have anymore. What did you do to help clear that?
Okay. Yeah, I will say I know sleep paralysis can be really common, and I know mine was definitely related to trauma. Basically, when I was awakened, I used to just be woken up by these nightmares. They would circle my bed, laugh at me, just say and be scary. I was mostly just terrified. I never really saw what they looked like. They just looked shadowy. But when I was awakened after my light experience, I just knew that I didn't have to be afraid anymore because I knew like I had love and I had divine love with me and I just wasn't afraid. So if you have to try to center your heart in love and look at them without fear and tell them to go away. I said, God lives in me and works through me, and you can't hurt me. So you can try saying that if you want. And it was very resonant when the shaman I worked with during these experiences. I didn't believe in shamans either, but I thought I was going crazy and I needed some help. But I mean, it was from his perspective, that's like a very common part of a shamanic initiation is like overcoming dark entities with light or something. I don't know enough about it, but it was like really normal for that worldview. Not really normal for mine.
Right. Well, but even though it doesn't sound like, you did have some experiences and this was outside the norm, you mentioned that your stepfather, who married your mom when you were in your 20s,
Yeah.
was a medicine man,
Yeah.
and you had some healing experiences with him. So will you first of all share what you mean when you say that somebody is a medicine man, and then you can elaborate and share
Yes.
whatever you want to
Okay.
about
So he would never claim this for himself. But people in the tribe I just recently found a bio from the first powwow we went to together during this time. And it was like he is rumored to be a medicine man or to have the powers, but he says only his dad had them. But it's also called a traiteur, which is the French word, or a lichi, because I found that he told me that when so basically, he was just he was a Marine and he was an engineer, but he also had this other side, which he really taught me you can be a normal person. You do not have to, you need to be part of society. And if you do anything special for people, it's all from God. You do not own this for yourself. This is a service. That really helped me. It was very grounding for me. But he started having dreams about me as soon as this experience started. He had a dream I was sitting in the sweat lodge with him and I was glowing with spirit, all blue. And that I told him, now I know how to go out and heal people. I'm going to cry. I haven't talked about that before. It was just, I remember I was 26 or 27. My mom called and she said, Joe had a dream he wants to tell you. I wrote it in my journal. I just found it the other day. And it was so, it was really meaningful to have somebody that could validate because I was literally, well, nobody knew I was going through this but him and that shaman. He didn't really like me talking to a shaman. It's a long story, but I had my friends in grad school, I had my work in grad school, I had my regular life, and then I had thankfully, this very beautiful father figure who was able to validate what I was going through and to really understand it. He taught me how to meditate in a very beautiful way. He taught me about the four directions, and he really helped me know that I wasn't crazy to see spirits. He saw spirits. He talked with his guides. It was a spiritual dimension of life that I hadn't been raised with. So very thankful that he was in my life.
I have to ask you, what are the four directions? I've never heard that term before.
Well, before when he taught me how to meditate, you pray to the four directions before you sit down in the center. You just pray to the east, the south, the west, and the north, and then you sit facing towards the east to meditate. And it's just, I'm going to tell this wrong, and I feel like any Indigenous person listening, please come on in the comments and tell me. I, that I just, but he was very a man of little words. So he would just say, east is for new birth, and this is the color. The south is for the fullness of life. The west is for death and the north is for spirit. He didn't use a lot of words, but he really communicated with me through his being. He would just kind of sit and show me. Very, very thankful for him because I really would have really probably had a really hard time if I hadn't. I would have been schizophrenic, is what I told my friends last week. Like I could have probably, but he said no. Like it wasn't even a question. He was like, "You're going through a spiritual experience. This is amazing. You have a gift. Let's help you." There was not even I thought I was schizophrenic, but he definitely didn't. So
So, were your thoughts about him confirmed by the type of light you saw coming from him?
yeah, he had a beautiful light, but he had a hard life as well and a lot of trauma as well. So but he had a depth and he had a knowing. Like I could just tell it was not going to be easy to pull one over on him. Not like I was going to try, but he could see right through me, just kind of the same way that light could see into my heart. So he definitely had that. And he definitely seemed like he knew a lot more than he said about anything. So he had a ton of dreams about me during that time and really validated a
Can
lot.
you
So thank
share
you, God.
another special dream he had about you?
Yeah, he had a dream and like that next year, still during my experience, I was still in grad school and my mom called and said, Joe had a dream you were becoming an angel of God on the earth. And I was like, and it was very beautiful. It was very nice because I was going through these experiences, but also I was just a 27-year-old, like also not being a perfect person. I was like, I'm not an angel. I was talking to my friend. I was like, how can I be an angel? But it was just more of like I'm tuning into the light. And he had dreams about it. Uh he had a dream about my boyfriend that he didn't like. you know. But it's fine. I mean, that goes on. You're bringing back a lot of memories of that time because I was in my 20s trying to figure all this out, but he helped me a lot. I'm very thankful for him. So,
So, towards the end of this experience, you have this big, massive dream,
yeah.
and you wake up the next day. And how did you understand that this 2-year period of time was over?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry just thinking about it because it was so hard. It was like, people talk about their near-death experiences, how they don't want to come back. It was like I literally thought at the spiritual part of me, I was going to learn all these things and go live in heaven because I was learning all this so great, awesome, and then I'm going to go. I don't know how I thought that. I was still living a regular life. I wasn't sick. But it all pulled back and it was basically like, go figure this out, what this means. And it was horrible. I cried. I felt lost. I didn't know why I was here. And I felt like God left me. I did a lot of crying by myself, thinking that God hated me and God abandoned me. And why would God leave me here on this planet? I know I'm using the word God. Nobody has to use the word God if you don't like to. Use whatever love, divine love. But it felt like it was very hard. And it's part of why it took me so long to like talk about it, because it was hard, but it taught me. Learning to swim, that last part of the dream was that I needed to learn how to do my own part of it. Like God, we need to be an equal partner. Those 2 years, like the divine really came into my life and helped shift me. But after that, I had to learn what I needed to do to stay in tune with it, or how I could help others, or how I could keep that light flowing. Because for a while, I just was like, that I'm mad or maybe I'm crazy and I'm just going to push it away. And I like just drank in New Orleans with my friends and like ignored it because and then it was like, wait, I can make choices that are better. I can stay tuned into this light. I can call it back into my life, and I wasn't abandoned. I'm an equal partner. That's what it felt like. But it was hard
Well,
for a while.
I
Yeah.
bet it was. It sounds like it was. I can see the emotion that it's bringing up for you right now.
Thanks. You're very sweet.
Yeah.
It was really rough for a while, but it's fine now.
So this happened many years ago,
Yeah.
and now you had to learn how to integrate all of this.
Yeah.
So can you share with us why you think this happened to you?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Sometimes I think it was just an accident. Like I called myself the accidental mystic. Like I just wrote this by accident and all this stuff happened. But I don't know. Maybe this was part of my soul plan, or that I think I was really spiritually wounded. And in order to heal, I had to do like a certain level of spiritual healing. And I don't know why it was so loud in my life. I don't know why I had all these different things happen but I think a lot of it was that I wrote that promise, even if I felt like I didn't mean to write it. It was really sincere and it was really big. I wanted to devote my life to God, live by the light, help other people live by the light, help me do this while I was crying. And I meant it so strongly in my heart. I think that prayer, I mean, sometimes I feel like when the light came into the room, it was like, what did she do? Why did she write that? Like part of me wonders if they were like, why did she write that? Because that was like not the way I was going. But I don't know. I don't know why it happened. I'll be very curious to find out, like when I pass to the other side.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, so what have you learned from this experience, and how are you different than you were before this all happened?
I'm much happier. I've learned that you're never alone. You always have guidance. I always have guidance, as well as you and anyone listening, that this world really is a dream. And that's one of the things that I started to learn. And I'm really feeling it now. Like we can stay tuned in with the love and like have a beautiful dream and live in a beautiful world. But you can also make choices. Free will is a real thing, and you can choose to not do that, which I did for a while after my experience. So I'm a totally different person now, and much kinder, much more loving. And I'm just, yeah, it's really beautiful. I don't always believe that happened to me, but it was really powerful. It really changed my life.
So you're married right now, right?
Yeah, to an atheist.
What?
Yes, I know. Well, I hadn't really been talking about my experiences at the time, but he's more of an atheist because he doesn't love like religion. So I talk to him about my experiences whenever he's interested in it. But yeah, he's been very supportive. He's been very supportive for like not really believing in the spiritual world. But I always tell him, well, wait till you meet me in the afterlife because you'll find out I'm right. That's basically how I end every argument. Not that it's an argument anymore. We just like discuss it.
That's funny.
Like,
That's
talk to
funny.
me after we die.
So you told me before we started this interview that you hadn't told anybody for, I think, like 14 years.
Yeah,
So
15.
what made you decide to share this story?
I felt a really big push. Now, I will say in my 20s, my stepdad told me one day, I was 27, this experience was happening, and he looked at me in the living room and said, you're going to be very popular one day, but you need to be strong. And I was like, what? And I knew part of me then was like, I'm gonna have to talk about this, and I don't willing to talk about it. And I really was like so scared because he told me I had to be strong. The shaman said the same thing. You are going to be a teacher and you have to be strong. And I was like, these guys are this is not sounding fun. I'm definitely not going to talk about this. And then last year I just started feeling a push, like it was my guides that was like, you need to apply to speak at IONS. And this was like having never really talked about it. I told like one friend a little bit, and it was just like a thing that I didn't talk about. And then to go and speak publicly about it after never talking about it was like a big jump for me, but it was like really freeing because then now I can go on podcasts with you and like tell people about it and feel I was so much more accepted than I was expecting. And, the world has changed. My experience ended in 2008. And I think people are becoming more aware and more spiritual. And it's not as weird as it used to be. I have some very supportive friends I never would have expected. And now I have people reaching out to just in my regular friend life that didn't know this about me, saying they've had spiritual experiences too. Can we talk about it? They want to know more. They're curious or they're having them happen. So it's been very amazing. Yeah. So it was just major guidance, internal guidance that I had to do it. And I was like, just going to take the leap. I've already done everything I wanted to do in my life and I can just let it all go. I had a good, regular, normal life like I really was trying to have for so long. Now I can just share and it feels really good. So thank you for having me so I can
Oh my
talk.
gosh. Well, why don't you tell people a little bit about the types of experiences that you now work with other people to help them
Yes.
have this happiness that you found and where they can find you?
Oh, yes, of course. I would love to. So, one of the big things I offer now are angel readings. So, I will tune into your angels and guides, and they've gotten better I started offering them 2 years ago. I tune into your angels and guides and they just tell me different things and I just start to say what I hear them say. And it can be very healing and very powerful and helps people get on the path they need to get on. I do a lot of meditating to stay in tune with those angels and um, so you can find me on RebeccaKastle.com. And I also do energy healing. So I work with angels to do energy healings as well. And I use Reki. And that's also very beautiful. I love doing both of those. So
Is that something that you have to have somebody physically in your presence to lay hands on, or is it something that you are able to do
I do
online?
both. Yeah. So I have
Okay.
in-person clients here where I live, and then I also have distant clients. And it's funny, distance healings can be really powerful in a way you wouldn't expect, just because it's like there's no distraction, and I tune in just exactly to this person's soul. I mean, I would not have believed this when I started studying Reiki, but it is very powerful. So I do that. I also have spiritual awakening coaching I added recently just because I have so many sweet friends and followers wanting to ask questions about their experiences. So it's like if you want to talk for a really long time about them, you can book and we'll just go in depth and I'll help kind of talk you through them. And because I really was so scared when I had mine. So if anyone needs some kind of coaching for that, I'm here too for that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful that you came on to share your experience. I love an experience like this. It's a little different than an NDE, but I think that these sometimes are more relatable to the people that are watching because there are parts of it that they can be like, okay, I get that, I get that. And, they understand the path of it better than like an illness or a car accident or, something
Right.
like
That's
that.
true because it was just in my regular life. Yeah.
Yeah, just in your regular life.
Yeah, and I think these might start happening to more people more and more, just as our humanity just keeps awakening. We'll see.
Which is great because now you have a service out there for people that can find you when they have had something and they don't have to navigate it alone as much the way that you did. Because it
Oh,
was a different world when this happened to
it
you.
really was. I mean, we've changed so much. I mean, so it's exciting. But yeah, thank you so much for letting me share.
I want people to remember how different the world was in 2008. 2007 is the first time I ever texted anybody.
Oh, I know.
We didn't have smartphones. We barely had the technology to be able to text somebody. Like the world was completely different then. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's that long ago, but it was a while ago.
So different. I have wondered, like, would I have had this experience if I'd had a smartphone? Would I've just been checking my phone instead of like writing into my journal to your, but I think people still can have them. Obviously, we need to sometimes taking a break from your phone helps you get a little more tuned in.
Right. That's always a good thing for everybody out there listening.
Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for the time today, for explaining your experiences and what you've learned for it. And I hope that everybody watching can get something out of it too.
Thank you so much, Lori. You're so beautiful. Thank you for
Oh,
listening.
thank you. And yes, thank you everybody for listening. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.